The intersection of Lafayette Road and Myrtle Grove lies 3,800 miles from France. But this sleepy corner in Henrico County will forever be linked to the shores of Normandy. A bond so strong, so enduring, it is etched in stone.
He's a very good example of the thousands of men who fought against horrible odds on D-Day.
Buried at Forest Lawn Cemetery, Lieutenant Colonel Thornton Mullins, a soldier from Richmond, whose story still inspires 80 years later.
Some definite memories.
In the late 1930s, Mullins was leading the 111th Field Artillery Battalion.
He was one of my father's very best friends.
Tom Ligon Jr.'s dad, Tom, served in the same Virginia National Guard unit as Thornton.
My father's in the back seat. This stern-looking gentleman in the front is Colonel Mullins.
The man from Manassas says his father admired his commanding officer.
Oh, I know my dad was deeply struck by Mullins' sense of duty.
But the winds of war will alter their friendship forever.
June 6, 1944.
The 111th, attached to the famed 116th Infantry Regiment, storms the sands of Normandy.
Yes, the 116th, that group. The Bedford Boys. Bloody Omaha.
In the opening minutes of D-Day.
And they were under intense fire coming ashore.
Nothing goes as planned for Mullins and his fellow soldiers.
The 111th found itself on the beach with no field artillery.
Mullins is wounded twice, and men were dying all around him.
It was carnage.
But the officer does not wilt.
Mullins rallied his men and is believed to have said, "To hell with our field artillery mission, we're infantry now."
Facing sheets of lead, he leads his troops off of the beach.
This is the supreme test of Allied spirit and of Allied weapons. The world's greatest military undertaking is underway.
It's just sheer determination.
The target, fortified German machine guns high above.
That anybody could do that without being absolutely paralyzed with fear is just astounding.
Mullins does not live to witness the mission's success.
No. Never made it to the bluffs. But his unit did.
The 31-year-old lieutenant colonel is cut down.
Despite all of the bloodshed, despite the first wave of the 116th Infantry being so badly mauled, they kept coming, they kept fighting. By nightfall, they had the high ground.
Upon learning about the loss of his friend a few weeks later,
somewhere in France, 27 July 1944, Dear Edna,
Tom Ligon's father,
it is with the most profound humility
that I offer you my condolences over Thornton's death.
pens a letter to Mullins' widow in Virginia.
In him, we lost a truly brilliant artilleryman, and the actions in which he died was certainly among the most heroic of the war, crowned by his personal contribution.
His note never reaches Mrs. Mullins.
My deepest sympathy.
and best wishes always, Tom Ligon.
Military censors return the letter to Tom Sr.
I'm sure it just heightened his resolve.
His friend's death leaves a gaping hole in his heart.
Increased his sense of duty. He had that to live up to.
2 months after his death, Mullins is awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the U.S. Army's second highest decoration.
I've read it enough times to wonder what I would have done under that kind of fire, which was absolutely withering.
His leadership under fire and being able to rally troops and get them off the beach were phenomenal.
Brigadier General Todd Hubbard with the Virginia National Guard once commanded the 111th Field Artillery Battalion, the same unit Mullins was leading on D-Day.
To think of the footsteps that I was following behind and just the legacy that he left and the impression he's made, it really humbles you and it makes you want to be a better leader.
General Hubbard says his predecessor's tenacity helped turn the tide on D-Day.
We need to remember the sacrifices that people have made for this country.
In 1991, the Virginia National Guard's Armory in Sandston was dedicated in Mullins' honor, a fitting tribute to the citizen soldier who gave so much.
He was an everyday Virginian who just served his country and then knew that it was important to defend democracy.
He had lost a best friend on D-Day.
Tom Ligon's father rarely talked about the death of his buddy. Decades after the war, the memories just too painful.
I've heard this story before, but it still gets to me.
Tom Ligon wishes the memories of Lieutenant Colonel Thornton Mullins and the nearly 3,000 other Americans who selflessly gave all on D-Day live on.
We're better people because we fought that war, because all of these fathers and grandfathers of ours were willing to go through this.
Following World War II, Mullins' family decides his remains belong at home in Richmond.
Mullins paid the ultimate sacrifice. He did so with his eyes wide open.
The corner of Lafayette and Myrtle inside Forest Lawn Cemetery, nestled an ocean away from Normandy, but forever tied together because of one brave soldier who rests here.
Multiply that by hundreds of thousands, and you get the story of the Second World War. There's a reason they call it the greatest generation.
For Heroes Among Us, I'm Greg McQuade, CBS 6 News.